Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Over the past week, and even in just the past 48 hours, the situation in Eastern Europe, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, has shown significant signs of deterioration, and it's looking more and more likely that this is going to escalate into a broader conflict. Right now, we could just be one wrong move, just one miscalculation away from an open conflict between NATO and Russian forces. And this is coming at a time when the US economy is already on the precipice of recession. Inflation is running out of control, interest rates are moving higher, and consumers and governments alike are burdened by nearly unpayable levels of debt. A perfect storm for both the economy and the established world order is approaching, but the storm has not hit yet, so there is still time to get prepared. And that is what we are going to be talking about in this video, so let's get to it. Today's video is brought to you by Silver Botanicals, household and personal hygiene products that utilize the power of nano silver. Head over to silverbotanicals.com today and use coupon code STACKER to save 10% off your order. Okay, so the conflict in Ukraine is looking super dicey at the moment. Back on April 12th, Vladimir Putin declared that peace talks were at a dead end, following Ukrainian accusations of Russian war crimes. He went on to say that Russia would continue its operations rhythmically and calmly, and he also made the comment that the most important conclusion of this conflict is that the unipolar world order that the US established following the Cold War was coming to an end. And then on April 14th, we got a really massive escalation when the Russian cruiser Moskva was sunk in the Black Sea. Ukrainian forces distracted the ship's crew with an aerial drone, while simultaneously launching two R-360 Neptune anti-ship cruise missiles at the vessel. The strike caused massive damage, and the ensuing fire proceeded to set off munitions that were on board. The Russian Navy attempted to tow the ship into port, but it sank on the way. Now, the Moskva was the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet with a crew of 510 sailors. This was the most powerful surface vessel in the region. So this is a major escalation. In fact, this is the biggest naval vessel to be sunk in combat since World War II. So this really has taken the conflict to a new level, and following the sinking of the Moskva, Russia sent an official diplomatic note demanding that the US and NATO cease arming Ukraine, and threatened that if arms continue to flow from the West, there would be unpredictable consequences. And it wasn't just that. Russian state television announced that World War III had indeed begun, and that Russia is in fact now at war with NATO. And while this might be a slight exaggeration, it does demonstrate just what a knife's edge we are on as far as the risk of this conflict evolving into something much more dangerous. On Friday, Ukraine's President Zelensky even came out and warned against the possibility of a potential Russian tactical nuclear strike. Russia has claimed that it will reserve the use of nuclear weapons for situations in which it feels an existential threat has emerged. But, it was also just a couple of weeks ago that President Biden was making comments about regime change in Russia. Now, he's walked those comments back since then, but I personally suspect that he was just being a little too candid and was actually announcing what the real plan for Russia has been all along. Now, if the US and NATO do get dragged into open conflict with Russia, it's safe to say that even if we emerge victorious and we don't all get annihilated in a nuclear holocaust, the economic costs will end up being disastrous. War is one of the most costly endeavors a government can embark on, and the US government would be getting into this conflict at a time when it is already flat broke. The national debt is already a crippling, unpayable $30 trillion, more than 125% of US GDP. We are running an annual deficit of more than $2 trillion, and that's in peacetime. What's that going to look like if we go to war? Not to mention the fact that we already have 8.5% year-over-year inflation, the highest in 40 years, and if we were to calculate the CPI with the same basket of goods and services that they did back in the early 1980s, the number would actually be closer to 17%. So basically, we have record debts, record inflation, The Fed has got $9 trillion worth of treasuries and mortgage-backed securities on its balance sheet that it's supposedly about to start selling onto the market with its quantitative tightening. And the Fed has only raised interest rates by 1/4 of a basis point so far, and yet the yield on a 10-year treasury is already approaching 3%. So it looks like we're headed to a bond market crisis as well. Oh yeah, and the yield curve inverted at the end of March, which is usually a clear signal recession is incoming. So we've got all of these factors converging at one time. Oh yeah, and there's a massive food crisis looming too. Don't forget about that. Fertilizer, pesticides, seeds, farm equipment, there's shortages and price spikes across the board. So it's about to get real, folks. It really feels that way. But the good news is that the shizzy has not really hit the fizzy just yet. So there is still some time to prepare. And, none of this is financial advice. I'm just a guy on YouTube. But this is what I'm doing to get ready for the economic shocks that are coming. Number one, getting out of debt. This one is huge, and it's clear how paying off consumer debt makes you less economically fragile. 2, stack some food. If calories start to run short, there's really not much else that matters. You know what the preppers are always saying? You can't eat silver, and that is true. I definitely feel more secure with each can of Mountain House food that I stash away, and with each bag of rice or beans that I seal up in Mylar, making it shelf stable for 30 years. Number 3, stacking precious metals, gold and silver. Real hard money that can't be inflated away by the printing press or confiscated in a bank bail-in, because as bad as things might get, they will eventually recover and get better. And for those of us who are prepared with assets that can make it through the worst of times, there really will be tremendous opportunity. I do believe that. Finally, I mentioned that the real storm has not hit yet, and I know everything is not perfect today, but in the US at least, there are still tons of opportunities. Right now, there's a major labor shortage, so if you've been thinking about changing careers or learning some new skills, there's really never been a better time. Even if you just want a side gig to make some extra fiat currency to convert into silver, for example, there are lots of opportunities out there at the moment. I read that some McDonald's are now paying up to $18 an hour for part-time workers. And, if you look at things historically, back in 300 BC, when Sun Tzu was writing The Art of War, he described the cost of raising an army of 100,000 soldiers as being 1,000 ounces of silver per day. And when you think about that, and then you realize that you get almost 3/4 of an ounce of silver by working at McDonald's for an hour, it kind of puts things into perspective. And obviously, I know that that's a bit of a stretch, but I do think it demonstrates that right now there are things we can be doing to get prepared ourselves, and also how cheap silver is. There's never been a better time to get hustling and get your finances in order and get prepared, because the clock is ticking, and we probably won't see World War III or a dollar collapse this week or even this month, but we could. And this situation is far from resolved, and the ongoing instability in the world order is likely to persist for years to come. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, then check out the videos that are popping up on your screen right now. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay safe and happy stacking. I'll catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.